What is going on, everybody? It is me again. It's HorrorFan34, and welcome to another video, and welcome to another review for the 31 Days of Horror Challenge in October. Now we are on day 15 of the challenge. Can't believe it's day 15 already. Wow. But I figured I'd talk about a film that not many people really would consider like a film they would watch like for horror month. But this film really does have a really great atmosphere to it, and it's people might even consider this a horror film, but it does have horror elements in it. But it's more of a thriller. But it's kind of like a horror psychological thriller, kind of like mystery, kind of like movie. But I had to talk about it for the marathon because I just think it's criminally underrated, and it has a fantastic cast, and it has a very capable director as well. And if you can tell by the title of the video, that review is going to be on Identity. The Secret Lies Within. Now, Identity was a film that was released in 2003. And that, like I said, it was by a capable director, James Mangold. This is the same guy that did Copland with Sylvester Stallone. Then he went on to do Logan with Hugh Jackman. I think he did I believe he did the Wolverine movie as well, James Mangold. But I'd probably say my favorite film with James Mangold is Copland, and then this one, and then Logan, number 3. Those are like my top 3 James Mangold films. I think Identity is one of the more underrated, like, serial killer, kind of like psychological horror films. Basically, there's 2 connecting storylines to this. I don't really want to say what the twist is. I know either people are for this twist or they don't like the twist. I happen to be a pretty big fan of the twist. I think it's a pretty unique twist. But the basic idea is that it opens with this convict that's going to be sentenced to the electric chair for committing a crime, for a murder. And you have the Shrink, played by Alfred Molina, who's like talking with the defense and things like that. And actually one of the defense attorneys, or one of the guys in the trial, is Marshall Bell. Now that's a character actor who's been in lots of stuff. He was in Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. That was the guy who Freddy killed him in like the shower. Killed the coach in Elm Street 2. That's Marshall Bell. He was also in Airheads with Adam Sandler. He was in Total Recall, Starship Troopers, lots of other stuff. But there's this whole thing where this convict is going to be sentenced to the electric chair for murder. And there's like that whole trial going on with the convict. But also at the same time you have these 10 people, these 10 strangers that are stranded at this motel during a heavy rainstorm. And they're kind of stuck there because it's flooded, and they got to spend the night there. And the 10 strangers that you have John Cusack's character, who is a limo driver. You have Ray Liotta as a cop who's transferring a killer, played by Jake Busey. You also have Amanda Peet, who plays a call girl. You also have excuse me. You also have Rebecca De Mornay from The Hand That Rocks the Cradle as a TV star who's being chauffeured by John Cusack. You also have a newlywed couple played by Clea Duvall and William Lee Scott. Clea Duvall was in The Faculty and Ghost of Mars and a lot of other stuff. You also have a family that's on a road trip. The dad is John C. McGinley. That's a guy who's been in a lot of stuff, like Any Given Sunday, Get Carter. I mean, you look up John C. McGinley, he's been in tons of stuff. And the manager of the hotel is John Hawkes, who's been in quite a few things as well. But it's basically these 10 people that are stranded at this motel during a rainstorm. And then little by little, they're being picked off one by one by this killer. And now it's kind of like the whole mystery of like who is the killer and things like that. There's little twists here and there that happen, and then there's the big reveal at the very end of the film. Now, I'm not gonna like spoil the twist because I don't want to spoil that for anybody who hasn't seen Identity. But I think it's a really good twist, in my opinion. But enough talking about the twist stuff. But I think what makes this film really work is the direction by James Mangold. I really like the way he's directed the film. I think it's pretty well written as well. I think the cast, you have music by Alan Silvestri, who does a great job on the score. And what I loved about this film, too, it's very atmospheric, it's creepy, it has a really creepy atmospheric concept. And I really like the cast as well. John Cusack, I like. Ray Liotta, of course, is always good. Amanda Peet does a good job as well. Jake Busey, John C. McGinley, Clea Duvall. You have Pruitt Taylor Vince. That's the guy who plays the convict that's being sentenced to the electric chair. Rebecca De Mornay does a good job. So does Alfred Molina for the little role that he has as like the psychiatrist who's talking with the convict. And I tell you, there's some really good graphic deaths in here. Not a lot of on-screen killings, but there are quite a few like aftermath scenes, like especially the part where Rebecca De Mornay gets decapitated, gets her head cut off, and then John Cusack later finds her severed head in a washing machine. I mean, there's literally a point where the I believe it's the Jake Busey character who, when they find him, who's like the escaped convict who's being transported by Ray Liotta. There's like a baseball bat stuck in his throat, which is pretty graphic as well. So it's kind of like this whole mystery of who this killer is, and things like that. But that kind of like plays into the twist and all that stuff. But I don't really want to say too much more about Identity. That has I don't want to spoil too much about it, but if you really want to see one of the more underrated serial killer kind of like movies, and it's headed by a fantastic cast, very good director, really good musical score. It's creepy, it's atmospheric, it's definitely R-rated, and I think it's a pretty unique concept for a movie about these 10 strangers being stranded at this motel right there during a rainstorm and they can't leave. And it's kind of like this whole thing of who is doing all this and who's behind the whole thing. And I just found this film really just interesting, unique, and just overall just a very solid psychological horror thriller. I think it's one of the more underrated serial killer kind of like movies. So if you really want to see a very I guess underrated kind of like serial killer kind of like movie, I would definitely recommend you check out Identity. It's a very solid flick. So that is pretty much it for my review for Identity. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.